Every trip to the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida is different. The main purpose of these trip reports is two things. Number one, if you are trying to decide when you want to go, this gives you a look into what it is like at that time of the year. Number two, this is also for all of those detail-oriented people like myself that love every little itty-bitty detail so that they can prepare for their Walt Disney World Resort vacation. So, are you ready for all the details? Let's go. I break these trip reports up into 6 different categories. Number 1, the resort. Number 2, transportation. Number 3, the weather. Number 4, the outfits. Number 5, the crowds. And then number 6, the strategies I used on this particular trip. This trip took place November 25th through December 2nd, and that will play into crowds whenever we get to that in a minute. I had 5 days there. I had 1 day in each park except for Magic Kingdom, and then I also had a free day where I visited Disney Springs and then had Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. So we'll go into all of that whenever we get to crowds and strategy. I did stay at the Disney's All-Star Sports this time. There were no actual big groups traveling, so staying there was actually an enjoyable experience. I did end up getting a standard room and I had a king-size bed in there, and I was quite surprised at the amount of room that was in the room. I do have my Disney's All-Star Sports Resort video coming out soon, so make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. The resort stay was very nice. The energy at the resort was actually really cool. I did have my room in the football section, so it was really cool at night to be able to come back to the resort and see all of the kids playing either soccer or football on the field because it's actually very wide open. And I love both of those sports, so it was just a really nice vibe for me to feel. And then also what I really liked as well, as weird as this may sound, is whenever I came out from where the buses dropped you off and I came as if I was going to my room. The bar is like situated right there facing the pool, and there was always a crowd of people, and the energy of everybody sitting at the bar was just, you could feel it whenever you walked past it. It was just really happy, really enjoyable, and a really good feeling, and I giggled every time that I walked past because everybody was having such a great time sitting at the bar after they got back from the parks. I did do online check-in, and I did have a late arrival day, which I did not care for too much. I am getting to the point to where I know that I like to arrive early because I am somebody who is very overly excited, and whenever I get overly excited, it takes a little bit of time for me to decompress and then come down to be able to quiet my mind and sleep. So this trip, since I got there late, it was like 6:37 p.m. that I actually arrived. I was not able to quiet myself down enough to be able to get a good night's sleep because I did rope drop Epcot on my first park day. So starting my trip out with no energy was very rough, and ended up having to take 2 days and really sleep in and catch up on my rest. So for me personally, I like to have an early arrival day. And when you do that, you are able to leave your bags and either go sit by the pool, go sit at the bar, go visit another resort, go sit at that bar if you would like, go to Disney Springs, but just being there in the Disney surrounding and letting all of my excitement out, and then decompressing, and then knowing that I need to go to sleep to get ready for the next Disney park day. The small details that stood out to me the most about staying in the football section and in the king size standard room was, number 1, I loved how close it was to the lobby, dining, and transportation. It was literally 1 to 2 minutes, so that was very nice. Number 2, the bedding on the bed is extremely light. So if you are somebody who does get cold easily, maybe bring an extra blanket or bring extra clothes to be bundled up in. And then number 3, make sure that you bring a sound machine. I am somebody that needs to have sound, and it was just a little too quiet. So I just ended up bringing up YouTube and just putting on like some brown noise, or if you have an app that plays nighttime music for you to be able to sleep, that helped tremendously. Transportation for me on this trip was extremely easy. So number 1, I did use Mears Connect going to and from the airport. I had another easy and seamless experience, and I wanted to try out Mears Connect during a holiday season to see if it was going to change up a bit, and it did not. So from the time that I checked in to getting on a bus, it took 4 minutes. From the time that I checked in to the bus actually leaving the airport to go to the resort, that took 19 minutes. From the time that I checked in to the time that I arrived to my Disney resort, it took a little under an hour. Whenever you are using a bus that is going to all of the all-star resorts, All-Star Sports is going to be the first stop on the stop, and then it's going to go to music, and then it's going to go to movies. So just so that you know where you are in the stoppage process, whenever you're coming from the airport to your Disney resort, just in case you are planning on having reservations or going somewhere for that evening. Just be prepared that you know what stop that you're going to be on depending on what resort you're staying at. The main transportation that is used for the Disney All-Star Sports Resort are the Disney buses. So I'm going to go over all of the different times that I was in line and the times that I noticed that the bus transportation actually got to the resort to take you to the parks. So first up, during the busiest times of the day, which is going to be first thing in the morning or right after the parks close, you are going to have your own specific Disney All-Star Sports bus. When it gets to about midday or later at night, they will combine all of the Disney All-Star resorts, and then that will mean that you'll have multiple stops getting to and from the park and the resort. So just keep that in mind whenever you are planning either going back to the resort or if you have a dining reservation. So you'll get picked up at sports, you'll stop at music, then you'll stop at movies, and then you'll head out. But like I said, during the busiest times, which is first thing in the morning, and then right after the parks close, you'll have one single bus to get you to and from the parks. In the mornings, if you are trying to take advantage of that early entry time that you have in the parks, these are the times that the buses began to arrive at the resort. So Epcot is normally, their early entry time is 8:30, and the buses began showing up at 7:16 in the morning. For Animal Kingdom, early entry time for that is 7:30 a.m. and I was on a bus for my Animal Kingdom day at 6:18 in the morning. Hollywood Studios had an 8 a.m. early entry time, and the bus literally showed up at the resort at 7 a.m. on the dot. For Magic Kingdom, early entry time normally for Magic Kingdom is 8:30, and the bus started showing up at 7:03 in the morning for the Magic Kingdom guests. Those times were when the first buses started showing up. So if you are going to be a hardcore rope dropper and you want to be there ahead of everybody else, then try to be there a little bit earlier than that hour mark before the early entry time. The later that you get, the longer the line will be, and possibly waiting for another bus to come. So I was quite lucky and had beautiful weather on this trip. So I encountered weather in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. First 2 days of my trip were Animal Kingdom and Epcot, and the weather did get up into the 70s and the 80s, and it was actually very hot and very humid. So I did have a t-shirt and shorts on that day. It was also a little overcast, so the sun wasn't blaring down on me. So the things that I brought with me was just a little regular fan, and that did wonders during that peak time of the day whenever it did get pretty warm. For the rest of the time, the weather was in the 60s and the 70s. And then on my Hollywood Studios day, Magic Kingdom day, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party day, I was able to get away with a t-shirt and either jeans or dress pants. And then for the last night, it did get into the lower 60s and there was a little bit of wind. So I did just bring like one actual jacket, and I was able to wear that on the last night and be comfortable. So in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, just layers are key. If you're trying to pack light, have t-shirts, have shorts, have either one sweatshirt, one pair of pants. That way you can interchange things just in case it gets a little cool. This trip, I did try to just have smaller bags like a fanny pack or just like a side purse, but after my first day, I instantly regretted it. I think no matter what, I am a backpack kind of girl. All the stuff that I bring into it, I was able to pare down just a little bit and be able to fit in there. But when it came to extra snacks, I had nowhere to put that. When it came to a water bottle, I was not smart and did not bring anything that I could clip onto my bag to carry one. So I always had it in my hand, which kind of got on my nerves. And then also I ate so many cookies on this trip, it's not even funny. And I had all these baggies and no place to put them. So I literally had to hold those in a bag as well. I'm just somebody that likes to have my hands free and not have to carry everything. And so I ended up going back to a drawstring backpack, and it was just something that I brought for my Phantasmic night because it had Sorcerer Mickey on it, and I was only going to use it just for that night, just for the aesthetic of it, but I ended up using that for the entire trip, and I am not a fan of those kind of backpacks because the string cut into my shoulder. So I am just a backpack kind of girl. I have certain things that I always bring with me no matter what on my trip, and you can check out my Pack With Me playlist and you can see all the different things that I bring and how I pack depending on the time of the year that I go. But I wanted to go over the things that I actually used on this trip. So number one of the things that I threw in my suitcase this time were apple cider packets. So in the parks and then also at your resort, you can get hot water, stifling hot water for free. So I wanted to bring that so I did not have to have something that was either overly expensive or just overly that's going to sit on me. And apple cider is one of those things that I love to drink during the holiday time. So it was just easy for me to put that in my park bag. And then in the evenings, whenever it got cool and I was walking around and then the whole park just kind of lit up like in holiday vibes, having that apple cider would just added to the whole ambiance and the memory of it. So that was really something I'm glad that I brought with me. I did also bring oatmeal packets with me this time, but I was just never in the mood to eat oatmeal in the morning, so I never did actually use them. Something else that I actually used quite often on this trip was Advil and Advil PM. I kind of actually did it as a preventative and just to make sure that I kept the pain away. And then I also did that with my foot rub as well. I didn't wait for the pain to hit. I went ahead and just kind of got ahead of it and took the Advil PM to help at night, and then rubbed my feet every chance I got with my BioFreeze travel packets that I brought. And then this detail doesn't really have a category, but it was just something that got on my nerves this time, and that is quick service drinks. All right, when you get a quick service drink, you get it's huge. There's literally no size that you get if you're getting an adult meal. And with that, you don't get lids on it because Disney is trying to cut down on waste and things that are not biodegradable. When you get a straw at Disney World, it's a paper straw. So there's no top on it. And whenever the drinks sit for a little bit, they start to get flimsy, and I just could not finish the entire thing. And I'm also somebody who just doesn't like to waste things as well. So I would carry the cup around with me and try and drink it. So about middle of the trip, it just got annoying. If you don't feel like you're going to finish something all in one gulp, I would bring like a water bottle that has a lid to pour it in there, and you can just kind of clip it to your bag and then have it with you. Or if I would have gotten smart, I would have gotten my drinks at like the gift shops because they are the twist off tops, and I could just put a lid back on it and then carry it with me. But that was just something, for some reason, this trip just stood out to me and just literally got on my nerves. The last two categories, crowds and strategy, kind of go hand in hand. So this trip, I did arrive right after Thanksgiving, and this year we did see quite large crowds for the Thanksgiving week. I did notice that crowds were still a bit heavy 2 days after Thanksgiving, and then after that is whenever everything started to kind of normal out, and then we saw moderate crowds. This trip, I did not use Genie Plus, nor did I use any individual lightning lanes, and this was intentional. So I'm going to go through each of the parks and then the things that stood out to me the most in each park with crowds and strategy and my thought process behind it. And if you ever want to go and look at my in real time what it was like in the parks, I always have my last trip saved in my highlights on my Instagram. My first park day was Epcot, and it was the second day of the Festival of the Holiday, so it was a little bit on the crowded side just because it was the second day of it. I only focused on 2 rides this day, and literally that was it. I rope dropped Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, and then I also got a boarding group for Guardians of the Galaxy because it had the new holiday overlay in it. So something that I experienced this trip was while I was in line for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, like literally midway through, I got my boarding group called. So I had an hour time frame to be able to finish up Remy's and then get to Guardians of the Galaxy for my boarding group. Well, I was 10 minutes late. When I got there, I did ask the cast member what the grace period is, and the grace period with that is actually an hour. So just in case that happens to you, you know that you don't have to run all the way across the park. I did not run. I walked very fast. However, my feet hurt and my shins hurt by the time I got there, and I was a sweaty hot mess because it was so humid that day. But just in case you come across that, you do have a little bit longer of a grace period than you would with a lightning lane or an individual lightning lane. I did do the cookie stroll this time, and I did not bring enough baggies with me because those cookies are large. So if you plan on doing the cookie stroll for Festival of the Holidays at any time that you visit, make sure that you bring enough. If it's one person or you don't think you're going to finish the cookie, make sure that you have enough baggies to bring them with you, because I was able to get a bag and put them in there, and I ate on them pretty much the entire trip. And then also the candlelight processional. Now with the candlelight processional, if you want to be up front and center and in the theater and be able to see everything, then depending on the narrator, is going to depend on what time you want to get in line. So there were people, so for my trip in particular, I was able to get in line an hour before and have a really good spot in the theater. If you don't want to get in the theater, if you don't want to sit in line and wait an hour and that kind of thing, you can sit in front of the American Pavilion and sit at the tables that are there and still hear everything. You may not be able to see everything, but you'll still be able to hear it, and you can sit and eat and drink out there and have a enjoyable Christmas time vibe as well. Now, whenever I got back, I did see on social media that it was a different narrator, and the line had gotten so long that it had gone all the way to the Africa Pavilion, actually at the end, like before it takes the curve back to China. So it is literally just going to depend on who the narrator is for that night. So you have 3 times that night to be able to go and see the candlelight processional. So you're really going to be able to tell how popular it is on that first showing and how early people begin to get in line for that. Now, also, if you have a dining package for that, you are going to get lined up on the left side of the theater coming from Japan. So just kind of keep that in mind, and they will sit that side first before they let all the other guests that are in line on the right-hand side of the theater. So just also keep that in mind as well if the candlelight processional is literally on your list. Second day of my trip was Animal Kingdom. I did rope drop Flight of Passage, and I also did a little experiment, and I knocked out all of the actual rides in Animal Kingdom except for Cali River Rapids, only because I just was not in the mood to get wet, in under 2 hours. So I was able to get all of those rides done before all of the ride waits started to get long when all the other guests started coming into the park. So it was awesome. However, with that, I did not stop whatsoever. I had coffee in the room that morning. I actually did not eat that morning, and I went from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. So I did not stop. So if you have the ability to do that, you can get Animal Kingdom done in a very short amount of time and have a half day, which is what I did. And I ended up park hopping to Hollywood Studios that night, and then going through Fantasmic because Fantasmic had just recently opened up. I do have a Fantasmic video coming out very soon, so make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. But the biggest thing that stood out to me the most for doing Fantasmic is I watched both shows back to back. So there were actually 2 showings on this trip, and Fantasmic doesn't always have 2 showings. So this is only if you have 2 showings on your trip. So number 1, I went to the 7:30 showing, but I got in line at 5:45, and we were let into the theater at 5:50. Getting there and in line that early gave me a front and center spot. I did get something to eat while I was in there. I got corn dog nuggets, chips, and a Coke, and was able to sit and listen to all the music and then all of the traditional stuff that happens at the beginning of Fantasmic, which was really fun. And then I also tested out going to the 9 p.m. showing, but I sat there on the bench and I waited for the entire crowd to go, and I waited until literally the last second to go up and get in line. I was able to get into the theater at 8:55 p.m. with no problem, and my seating was a little on the outer ends. I still had a good spot, but not as front and center as being in line as early as I was for the first showing. things to take away. I did notice that the first showing was a lot more packed than the second showing. For the second showing, I had a little bit more leeway and was able to pick where I wanted to sit, and I tried to go as close as I could, but not as close as I could because you still get wet from all of the sprays of the water. I sat almost 10 rows back and still could feel the sprays of water. So if you're not wanting to get wet and you're not wanting to feel that mist, then probably sit about 10 rows more and back. Day 3 for me was Magic Kingdom. I did sleep in and I actually did not get to the park until 12 noon. When I got to the park, everything in that park was busy. And I just mean it was packed. The ride waits were super long, everything. So I actually did not ride anything until right before Disney's Enchantment started. So the first ride that I rode was way late in the evening, and it was People Mover. Then I went and got my spot for Disney Enchantment, and then I rode from right after Disney Enchantment all the way up until the end of the night at 11 p.m. that night, and was able to get 5 rides in, just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. So if you have a Magic Kingdom day and you don't have Disney Genie Plus, or if you don't have the individual lightning lane, then I would suggest rope dropping and try to do things first thing in the morning. And then also if you have the ability to be able to stay up later after Disney Enchantment. Now this is the possibility with rides with the lowest weights. I just on this particular day was not willing to stand in lines and long lines in the middle of the day. So it was just a personal choice from me. But I also wanted to test out what it was going to be like going into the park at 12 noon, Magic Kingdom, during the holiday time. Day 4 for me was Disney Springs Day, and I do have that Disney Springs holiday video up, and I'll have that linked in my description box below. And then it was also Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party that night. So the biggest things that stood out with me for that, because I also have that video up and I'll link that below as well, was how early people got there. So on my departure day, I sat in front of Magic Kingdom from 2:30 until 4:30 observing. And that's what I do best. I get all those little itty bitty details. So I did notice that guests started to arrive for the party at 3 p.m. and literally just camped out and sat there. And then as about 3:25 hit, that is when the crowds really started getting in there, and it really started getting crowd dead. They did start letting guests into the park at 3:50. And then just in case you don't know, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party starts at 7 p.m., but you can get into the park as early as 4 p.m. So they started letting guests in at 3:50 p.m. On my Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Day, I arrived at the front gates at 4:15, and I also noticed that whenever I sat there on the observation day as well, is by 4:15 the crowds were in, everybody was good to go, and after that point it was really easy and seamless to go up there, scan in, get your wristband, and get into the park. So if you don't want to be there for that really crowded time and don't want to sit there and wait, then I would get there either right at 4 o'clock and let the crowds just kind of keep going, or right at that 4:15 mark. But the crowds were at the strongest starting at that 3:25 mark and then heading in whenever they got into the park at 3:50. Day 5 for me was Hollywood Studios. This day, I was literally just testing things out. I did not start riding anything until 12 noon whenever all the ride weights were at their longest. And what I did is I tested out to see what ride weights fluctuated, and then I got in line for things that I was willing to wait for, and then tested out to see how long the ride actually was. So for the most part, the 2 rides that fluctuated the most were Rock and Roller Coaster and Smuggler's Run. So they would fluctuate from 30 minutes all the way up to that 90-minute mark, and then just kind of do that throughout the day. On this day, for the most part, I did not wait more than an hour for anything. The only thing that I did was Rock and Roller Coaster. I actually got in line for Rock and Roller Coaster when the wait time said it was 40 minutes. And then in the middle of waiting for it, the ride weight jumped up, and then I ended up waiting about 81 minutes for that ride. So for the most part, everything else in Hollywood Studios, and I did hit all of the rides that day, I did not wait more than an hour. My last park day was in Magic Kingdom, and it was on a Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party day, and I did this intentionally because I wanted to test out and see how the ride weights were versus a Magic Kingdom day without a party date. So On this day, the park did open at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. like it normally does, so it was a little bit of an earlier start. I actually walked into the park at 7:30 a.m. and rope dropped, if you will, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and got that done within a 35-minute wait. So the biggest takeaway from this day is the things that always have a long line are the ones that had long lines throughout the day in this park as well. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Peter Pan, Jingle Cruise. Those are the three that had the longest wait, and they held a wait about 55 minutes to 60 minutes. Nothing really got over that, I think, because it was a party day. If it was a normal Magic Kingdom day, I do think that they would have gotten higher. So it is still a good idea to try and get in there as early as you can and knock out the ones that will have the longest wait, and that is going to be Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Jingle Cruise, and Peter Pan. All the other ride waits that I could see and that I rode were minimal waits. I think the longest time that I really waited besides Peter Pan was Big Thunder, and I think I waited about 25 minutes. Everything else was 10, 15, 20. So it was a really just nice, casual, enjoyable day. And then ride waits will jump up a little bit, especially whenever all the other guests can get in at 4 o'clock from the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party guests that are coming in for that night. So if you're trying to decide if you even want to be in Magic Kingdom on a party day, I think the strategy is if rides are the only thing that you want to do, and if you don't mind missing out on Disney Enchantment or whatever fireworks show is happening at the time of your visit. Last thing that I want to talk about is the holiday feels. So whenever you're planning a trip and all of your expectations and everything that you see and you just think it's going to be is just like Christmas is just everywhere around you and you're going to feel Christmas just everywhere. Well, whenever you get to the parks, it isn't exactly that way. So I just want you to have a realistic expectation of what you are walking into. So as far as the Christmas feels go, the two parks that are going to have it the most is going to be Epcot and Hollywood Studios. Hollywood Studios was by far my favorite. Epcot was second. Now, you're not really going to feel the holiday stuff until, in my opinion, until later in the evening. Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Studios is whenever everything really started to come alive. It would snow on Sunset Boulevard, the music would be going, Tower of Terror would be lit up, and there would be like really loud little cartoons that would be showing on the big screens over there, and it would just literally be holiday feels all around you. In Hollywood Studios and in Epcot, they have singing groups, a cappella groups, and that literally was so awesome, and it really puts you in the holiday spirit. When you go to Magic Kingdom and then when you go to Animal Kingdom, for me, the holiday vibe is really just in two main areas. So in Magic Kingdom, it's literally just going to be on Main Street. That is it. And then as far as the holiday feels go, and again, for me, I really felt it at dusk whenever everything started to come alive as far as the lights. And then there was a very short, small tree lighting ceremony, and that just was like, woohoo, Christmas. But other than that, as far as Magic Kingdom goes, everything else was business as normal. In Animal Kingdom, it's really just going to be on Discovery Island, and that is going to be with all of the Merry Menagerie puppets. I do also love the way that Discovery Island is decorated for the holidays. I am just in love with the colors of it, and so as far as that goes, now Africa is also really decorated as well, and in the evening time when everything starts to light up, it is also really cool. But as far as the holiday feels and hearing the holiday music, it is just going to be whenever you walk into Animal Kingdom on Discovery Island. If you are wanting all of the holiday feels and want to be in Magic Kingdom for that experience, then absolutely spend the money on Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. That party, in the beginning, whenever you're trying to do all the cookies and all the drinks and then ride all the rides that have the overlays and all of that, that can be like business as usual, kind of feel like it. But once the entertainment starts, the parade, the fireworks, the stage show, that literally brings the entire feeling of Christmas just front and center, and you really feel it. Especially whenever you're at the parade, make sure that you are on Main Street and you get the experience of Snope as the parade is coming down Main Street. It is just literally everything. If you made it this far in the video, I thank you so very much. Like I said, I love details, so you came to the right place if you are a detail-oriented person. If you liked the information that I gave here today, please, if you would, give this video a like. It lets me know that I'm giving you the information that you are looking for. I'm Terry with Creating the Magic, and have a magical day.